HR is still viewed sometimes as the policy police, which literally makes me want to dive out of my skin. It's just not where we're needed anymore and where we shouldn't be needed anymore because there's so much more to offer from even just a consulting mindset and mentorship mindset around HR and what we see and what we observe.
Welcome to the HR Misfits, the podcast about leadership decisions most organizations get wrong, told from the HR seat that actually sees the fallout. We're business-minded, human-centered, and just bold enough to challenge the people systems that no longer work, where polished playbooks end and real leadership begins. We're the HR leaders who've been in the room when things get messy, political, or uncomfortable, leading with heart, grit, and a little bit of sass. If you believe HR should be a catalyst, not corporate theater, and leadership should actually work for humans, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome everybody. This is Amy Graves with the People of Work, and I'm so excited today to bring you to a really fun new series called the HR Misfits. As all of you know, I believe that I'm in HR and I've been working in HR for 25 plus years. I stopped counting after 25. It just feels wrong to say anything above that. But I'm thrilled to introduce some co-hosts that are going to be joining me for this series. Before I introduce them and they introduce themselves, I want to just talk a little bit about what is HR Misfits. So HR Misfits is a series that the three of us really created together. We really felt like there was a lot happening in HR that goes unsaid. And this is our opportunity, our platform in place to, not be quiet about that anymore. Share the good, the bad, the ugly, the human side of work. And we're excited to dig in and talk with each other and talk with you and just share all kinds of great, details, information, maybe some stuff that might surprise you about human resources and this field. So first, before I introduce my co-host, just quickly, Amy Graves. I am the CHRO at Beltec Logics, which is an IT managed services company headquartered in Indianapolis. I've been there for about 7.5 years. Again, like I said earlier, spent about 25 years in HR. I started out working at the NCAA in Indianapolis, then went to Rolls-Royce, where I met the lovely LaToya, which was many, many years ago. So I'm sure at some point we'll dig into that story. Married to my husband, Aaron, and we have a big blended family. We call the 2025, we're going into 2026 now, Brady Bunch. This is, mine, his, there's no ours. We're too old for ours. Just a gang of kids though, guys. Just, it's a wild, wild ride over here. And I have two granddaughters too, Sailor Joe and Lottie, and you'll hear about them later in the show, I'm sure at some point. But let's kick it over to our beautiful co-host, my good friend, LaToya Davis. And my newer, but just as amazing good friend, Marci Coppola. I'm so excited to have both of them. These women are powerhouses in their own right. HR experts. We've got, LaToya, who comes from kind of that enterprise HR corporate environment. Marci, who also was in that environment, but left for entrepreneurship and leadership coaching, kind of doing her thing. All of us just have very different perspectives and also geographies. We were joking earlier that we kind of got the United States covered. LaToya's out in Texas. I'm here in Indianapolis, and Marci's out on the East Coast. So, LaToya, why don't you just kick it off for us and introduce everybody to you?
Yeah, thank you. And it's been a long time since we've known each other. And it is also where I started my HR journey. I think you were a little ahead of me. It was my first real HR job. So that was 22 years ago, which is crazy. So it's 22 years in the world of HR and that going across all types of different industries. It's been quite a ride from manufacturing to healthcare, consumer products, pharmaceuticals. I feel like I've hit a lot of different things from a lot of different lenses. And so I'm excited to have this full circle moment with you. We've been on this journey together through life, family, all the things. And also the kids, divorce, other marriages, new kids, all the things. And all of it, it still connects back to like our experiences with each other personally and professionally have all come back to this moment. So this is really an awesome experience. And for those of you that have, that I maybe have connected with along my journey, you may hear some familiar stories or anecdotes. So again, no names will be used, but you may, if you know, you know. And along that journey, I got a chance to meet Marci on my tour through the East Coast, and the world is all interconnected. That's all I'm going to say. I met Amy 22 years ago. And I met Marci probably 10 years ago when we worked together. And now we live in different parts of the world. And here we are back in the internet connected here on the HR Misfits. So maybe I'll let Marci, you tell us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so excited to be here with both of you. So, yeah, LaToya, you said it best. The world is actually smaller than we think, right? Because, paths always find their way to each other. So, my name is Marci Coppola. I started actually in personal training and wellness. And then I, like a lot of people, figured out that, hey, I need to hustle. I need to make some money. So I started in talent acquisition and I started in agency life and realized very quickly, I was like, wow, I am not cut out for sales. So I ended up in corporate America, started in talent acquisition for a major healthcare organization, and then made my way into HR. So 15 plus years of experience in many different areas of human resources, different functions, different leaders, different styles, and I learned so much. And one of the biggest things that I became passionate about was leadership coaching, like Amy stated. So, coaching, mentoring, unlocking potential, being my open and real self, I realized that I wanted to take that and turn it into entrepreneurship. So, I started Seshen Coaching and Wellness about a year ago and have been doing that, have really been loving it and leaving myself open to HR contracting opportunities and consulting opportunities because for some reason I keep going back to HR.
Just can't get away from us.
I know.
Comes
It really does, doesn't it? It comes back. And so, yes, I am an East Coaster. I'm a Jersey girl, born and raised, love New Jersey. It's where I met LaToya. And I've just been having fun. This has been a new chapter of my life. So, just went through a divorce and decided to change my entire life with entrepreneurship, starting over. So, I'm sure that will come up a lot because I've been there and I know what it's like to be at a crossroads in life and have to make some difficult decisions for yourself, but the necessary ones so that, you can truly step into who you want to be.
So basically what we're saying is if you'd like another podcast on the lives of three divorcees, maybe that's our next show.
Started their careers as in talent acquisition.
Yep. TBD. Catch us later. We'll see if we bring that to life. Okay.
So many connections.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I want to just kind of quickly share too, like how like this show itself or this series within the People of Work came to be. So LaToya and Marci both were just kind enough to be guests on the People of Work and share their work journeys and their stories. And I remember in those conversations, LaToya and I kind of, again, just based on our history, saying, man, we could have a lot of fun if we did like a series that was just focused on all the good, the bad, and the ugly and the unsaid of HR, kind of in a joking way. But then I'm like, both of us were like, this might have some legs to it, actually. And then, of course, Marci was just such an easy addition because, again, also participated in the People of Work and shared her journey as well. And I just love her fresh ideas, her perspective, her realness. She's authentic and human. And, she doesn't mind it when I say a cuss word, like all those things. We're like, she must be on the show.
She's a Jersey girl.
She's a Jersey girl, We got to do it. We got to do it. So I want to kick it off by asking each of you, what makes you an HR misfit? Whoever wants to chime in first.
Well, I think you just alluded to it for me.
I did.
The Jersey girl mouth.
I was setting it up for you.
So let's put it this way. When I was pursuing health and wellness and I was a personal trainer and, first of all, I drove my parents crazy because I changed my mind probably 15 times in college. I really did. I was doing that. And I remember when I made the decision to go into talent acquisition and I remember I was out to dinner with some friends and we had some drinks and I was saying, I'm going to make this shift and I accepted this role and I'm going into talent acquisition. And literally the forks dropped and they looked at me and they're like, you are going to take your mouth into corporate America? Like they were flabbergasted, And so really, truly the things that I know that I excel at, I'm really great at certain aspects of HR, but I bring my real self in terms of authenticity, in terms of, I used to joke and say, don't ask me for my opinion unless you're really ready to hear it. And that's just how I would show up with my leaders. So I don't probably fit that mold that maybe some people have in their mind around constant, professionalism. And it's like, I'm just going to say it.
Right. I love
There it
that.
is.
I love that. That is misfit material. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, LaToya?
Very, very similar. Like, not a judgment of heart. Yeah, I'm still, my heart is and soul will remain in the Midwest. And I was probably a little bit too Midwest when I first got to the East Coast, but now I'm more balanced. Just so I got a little more edge to me. But we'll get to this. Never really thought I would be in HR. I just, like I just found my way there. We'll talk about that at a later date. But what I found when I got into the HR business partner space after coming out of talent acquisition, almost every person that I ever worked with would say, "You're very different for an HR person." And I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And they're like, "You're just like real and honest." And like one specific person said to me, "You're not so much of a rule follower." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm definitely not." Was that part of the job description? Because I definitely, like, no one told me that. Cause I was like, I'm more of a great dissenter. And tell me why that is, and more challenging the process than anything. And quite frankly, like that's who I am in life, at work. And that's also what's made me successful. In my opinion, I tell my teams this all the time. If it's not illegal or ethical, it's up for discussion. Challenge everything. As far as I'm concerned, and if it's illegal, let's talk about it. Cause then let's unpack that. Cause there's a lot of outdated laws too, because we might want to challenge that one too. That's when I realized like there is a lot of, traditional HR. And that's also kind of where my mind was probably for a long time. I didn't know that I would want to be like an HR person. And we'll talk about this. All three of us probably had this experience. In the world of HR for a long time, there was talent acquisition was not HR. They would be like, this is talent. And that those HR people, like we weren't part of the family. We were like the step cousins to HR. But I also didn't see myself there because I'm like, yeah, I don't want to just like enforce policies and like plan the Christmas part. In my mind, at first, that's what was going to happen. When I got into it and realized it was so much more than that, I also realized that what I wanted from it and what a lot of people's perception of it was the game was changing. And that's why I wanted to join. So I knew that, again, that traditional mold of HR, maybe from years before, was not who I was, but I think that it worked out well because of the misfit behavior. It is what got me through of like saying, yeah, I want to do that. Like, let's disrupt HR and let's think about it different.
I love that. That's what it's all about. I can relate to those experiences as well. My dad owned a trucking company, so I grew up in this environment where he owned this trucking company. But I remember one time walking into his office and saying, and he was like at his desk and he had his feet up, and he was definitely thinking. I was a young kid, and I was like, "Dad, I can't wait to be a boss or a president of a company so I can do what you do and kick my feet back and take people golfing." And my dad got so serious, and he just came in and he said, "Amy, don't you ever forget that I am a truck driver first." And I don't know that I quite got it in that moment because I was a young kid, but don't you know, as I got older, I absolutely recognized what he meant by that. So I grew up in this environment where, I mean, trucking is quite a bit different than, corporate America. It's very different. But I think what it all taught me is there's people everywhere in all industries, and everybody has a story and a background and how they were raised and what they've been through, and how you treat people matters no matter the space. And we don't all have to be robots. I can bring myself to this industry and bring that same person to this industry. Now the conversations might be different, but that's not because I'm not being authentic. It's because there's a piece of you that has to adapt to your audience, right? And that's just good emotional intelligence. So I completely agree with you. The challenges I think that I have experienced in HR, some of it's kind of self-imposed doubt sometimes where I'm like, to Marci, you mentioned it earlier, like, am I just not professional?
Yeah.
No, it's not that. Listen, you'll never see me not be professional in front of a client. I mean, of course, like I'm going to, put my best foot forward. But, if we're going to have some hard conversations, you're going to see, I think, some realness that you might not expect from your personnel department from 25 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
if you say personnel, I'm probably not going to talk to you anymore.
Oh
I
my
know,
God.
my God.
It's the worst.
There was a leader that, oh my God, he used to say that like, "Oh, do you have personnel updates?" I'm like, "What
Oh,
year am I in?" What is personnel
Yeah.
updates? I'm like,
Time to update your resume if you hear that,
oh
Marci.
my
Okay.
God,
Anybody? Yeah.
what?
This is a PSA. If you work in HR and somebody at your work says, "How is personnel going today?" Update your resume.
Yeah,
Like
it's
not
not the right.
not where you want to be.
They,
Yeah.
HR does not have a seat at the table if they're still calling it personnel.
Clearly. I want to ask this other question. I'm so excited because I love the realness that this show is going to bring to our HR space, and our HR colleagues across the world. So I want to know who you are. How did you stumble into HR? Because let's face it, I didn't grow up saying, I can't wait. I want to be an HR executive. I want to be an HR practitioner.
You didn't dream of that as a kid? You didn't take your Barbies out and say, Barbie goes to HR. You didn't do
That's
that?
right. That's right. It's not a bad
I
idea.
know it's a shock, Marci, but I didn't. I didn't. So maybe you did. That's why I'm asking the question. I'd love to hear about it.
No.
Yeah, right, right. So tell me, like, how did all this happen? How did we get here?
Well, I'll start. I definitely did not work. And if you haven't, and you should go back and watch the episode that I did on people at work, then you'll know
Yeah.
the story a little bit. But the headline is my aspiration was to be Oprah, as Amy knows very well. That was the goal. Like that is who the Barbies were set up to be. The guests on the LaToya show. I went to college for communications. I had it all. Like I had a plan. I had a 5-year plan when I was like 5 years old.
And LaToya, the job of Oprah was taken.
It was unfortunate.
By Oprah.
Take it. Now, I should have seen the dots connecting because I was doing a succession plan for Oprah because clearly,
yes, of course,
the agent
obviously,
was going to
clearly.
need a replacement. And if I just timed it right, the market was going to be open for me. I just needed to succession plan. So maybe there were signs that I would get here because I was doing succession planning well back in the day to replace Oprah. However, it was not great. I was not a strong person on the pipeline because I did not make it there. I had still lots of opportunities, but I did start in talent acquisitions, just like Marci said. And this was really more like a survival technique. At the time, I just needed a job. It was not too long after 9/11. The whole economy was a mess. And I had done some sales and marketing when I was in college, working in Lisa. And so again, it was, for those of us that started in the agency, it's a sales job for all intents and purposes. And if you have a personality that can make people talk to you, then they will be like, you're going to be great. So they throw you in there. And I ended up making a sales call into Rolls-Royce, which is where Amy and I met. And someone there that had also went to the same college and I went to, Purdue University, go Boilers, said, oh, I started off doing that job. You probably hate it. That's great. I know, this is so awesome. Exactly what I wanted to do. And she's like, but we are starting like a talent acquisition center of excellence at the time. And we have open jobs. If you're interested, like send me your resume. And then the rest is history. I started in corporate recruitment. And then I thought like, this is it. Like, this is it for me. I thought I would just be in talent acquisition. I never really wanted to go to the other side. It took about a decade after I did college recruiting, professional and all the things. And I wanted to get on the business side and I didn't think that was the case, but I saw the shift and that's how I ended up in like a broader HR. And along the journey, I've done, like Marci said, a lot of different things in HR, but I spent a solid 10 years just doing recruiting and talent acquisition, just in different industries. But I definitely didn't think that, like, when I think back 20 years ago, I still always thought like at some point you'll do something else. And I really can't imagine doing anything else at this point.
I love that.
It's interesting how talent acquisition, I feel like that's there's a hidden gem in talent acquisition because you really get to learn so much in kind of a deep way about your operations. You really learn all of the different roles. You're filling them, right? So you really get kind of a front row seat at how things operate and who does what and what roles are, really critical and why they're critical. It's such a great entry into HR. I also think though, it could be not so much nowadays, but I think, LaToya, when we were at Rolls-Royce, one of the fears I had was, am I going to get like pigeonholed into recruiting and I won't be able to? So I was purposely looking for something that would take me into the business side so I wouldn't experience that. But the truth is, like, that's where I cut my teeth in HR, is it was in talent acquisition for sure, right? Yeah. What about you, Marci?
Agreed.
Your Barbies were all saying HR?
Obviously. No, so I was like a He-Man and She-Ra and Wonder Woman kind of girl. So
That explains the training record,
I
right?
was gonna say, it's so funny because I changed my mind so many times when I was younger, and I had such a creative brain as a kid. And if you listen to my People of Work episode, I love that we've like shout out to People of Work. We talked about that because I had such a creative brain as a kid. But I remember this pressure that came in, and LaToya, you said it best, right? That 9/11 occurred, the economy was in a really bad place, and there was this voice, this pressure. It's like, no, you got to make money, you got to hustle, you got to figure out your life. And I remember at the time I was a personal trainer and I was getting up at 5 a.m. and I was training clients in a hospital setting in North Jersey. And I was working two jobs. And I remember feeling like, even though I liked it, there was still this belief system that started to creep in that said, no, you got to do something else. So I did the same thing, LaToya. I ended up in agency setting and talent acquisition, the smile and dial, and realized really quickly, I was like, oh God, I can't do this every day. And so it just, and the money was great, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I just felt I had to find a balance. And so HR naturally found me because I remember when I left the agency world at the time, I got a phone call from somebody and same thing, somebody from Johnson & Johnson, she called me and she was like, I saw your resume. We have a contractor position open in talent acquisition. And the rest was history. I loved the people. I loved the environment. And I had the same mentality. I was like, I could do talent acquisition. I can help people. I can place people. I could do this. No problem. The next thing you know, I remember being on site and working alongside all of these commercial leaders. And I was basically doing strategic workforce planning for them. And I didn't realize it at the time. I was like, what are these terms? What does it mean? And so next thing you know, there was an HR opening and they said, Marci, I really think you should apply to it. And again, it was like this mentality of, oh, great, like my career is set now and I can just follow this path and I'll be fine and I'll do that. But there was still this voice in the back of my head that was like, oh, you're going to be a career HR person now. Like, this is
it.
This is it. Like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? But I really did, look, I had fun and the people that you meet along the way and really in the grand scheme of things. And I agree with you, LaToya, because if you had told me that the type of HR work I had to do at the time would have been more process focused, more around payroll, more around the employee relations aspect, more around the transactional side of HR, there's no way. There's no way. So I think what made me gravitate towards it is because you were a business partner with HR solutions. You really were getting to uncover the aspects of a business, how a business works, understanding P&L, understanding things that you probably never would have thought you would have gotten into. And I think it just made it interesting knowing that, you got to be part of that. And so I really got hooked after a while. But yeah, if I could have maybe gone back in time and talked to that little girl that was playing with Wonder Woman dolls and He-Man and She-Ra, I would have been like, if you're not careful, you're going to end up in HR. like, dream bigger, kid. But no,
bigger, kid.
Yeah. And it's so funny because LaToya, and this is why you and I hit it off too, because how funny is it that things come full circle? Because when I was younger, and Amy, you'll love this, when I was younger, my brother and I used to hit record on the old school cassette players, and we would tape ourselves pretending that we were on our own radio station. And we would literally interview each other and pretend like we were on the radio. And so years later, here I am having fun doing podcasts. I'm like, everything comes full circle.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if we had only known that. Yeah, I wrote myself off as like a potential thing. And then this podcast work came and I was like, there is a chance. There's no barriers to entry. Just go on and start recording stuff, put it out there. You don't need Oprah to call you.
And for the record, you have our full support if you're going to be the next Oprah, like full support.
Please have us on the show when the day comes where everybody gets a car. Like on that day, we want to be in the audience.
100%.
Totally. I'm very collaborative, Oprah. You have your own trademark, but if you hear this, we can partner.
I love it.
One
of the things that really excites me about this group, the three of us together, is I just think it's so cool that all three of us have very different experiences and journeys, but also just like different points and perspectives in our lives. I mean,
Yeah.
there's obviously a lot of similarities and I think synergies, which is why we're here together doing this, and it's going to be a blast. But I also think that there's some differences that hopefully listeners can like pick up on as the show continues and say, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense," or didn't really identify with Amy about that, but I did with Marci or LaToya. And I think that that's the joy of it is you've got three very different journeys, three very different perspectives, and, kind of different spaces and places in our lives. Yes, we've all been divorced, so just call us if you need advice on that.
It's going to be a second spinoff of
the second spinoff of the people of work, the people of divorced. But no, I think that first of all, LaToya has moved from the Midwest to the East Coast, now to Texas.
Yeah.
Just picked up her family and moved around. She's followed, I think, where the career was taking her. I've admired that so much because, I've always been in the Midwest and I dream of leaving sometimes, but then I'm just stuck right here. I just implanted. I don't know. So I've always admired that you've been able to create and craft a career that's taken you to different places, no matter where it is. And you've just been open, and it's been a wild journey and ride. And I love that for you. And LaToya's a mom of, 3 young boys. For me, my youngest are teenagers and the others are grown. And one of them is married with 2 kids. So I'm a nana, a very different stage of life that I'm experiencing. And then Marci and I were talking about this a little bit ago too, is, Marci's divorced and single, no kids. And there's that just interesting and kind of to be real, like a pain in the ass, I think, assumption that if you don't have kids, that you've got tons of free time and you should probably work till 7:00 at night, because what do you have to go home to? Well, she's got a lot of shit to go home to, people.
I know,
okay.
Right.
Yeah. And so I love that we all 3 bring very different perspectives.
I agree.
I think it's going to make the show just even better.
Oh, we're going to have fun because we're going to be our open and real selves. So
I love it. You're going to get it all. In fact, speaking of getting it all and what they're going to get, why don't LaToya, Marci, chime in, tell the listeners what they're going to be hearing on the People of Work, or I should say the HR Misfits series.
I think first and foremost, what I love about this is that you said that it's like we each have our own style. So I think it will be relatable for people who have been there. My favorite is how HR is still viewed sometimes as the policy police, which literally makes me want to dive out of my skin, because it's just not where we're needed anymore and where we shouldn't be needed anymore, because there's so much more to offer from even just a consulting mindset and mentorship mindset around HR and what we see and what we observe. So I think that's one of the big things you'll probably hear from us the most is just this is a group of, experienced leaders who are not afraid to have bold conversations. So I think you're going to hear a lot of that. We have a lot of stories, let's face it. I joke around all the time, and my friends who are teachers, I always say, bless them, because that is a really tough job and trying to, assist children and instruct children. But I joke around and I say that, I get them in the adult version, right? Because a lot of these leaders, believe it or not, haven't actually grown up and exhibited that emotional maturity. So we have a lot probably around even just petty workplace politics that you'll hear that we've encountered. And I think, if we can demystify anything for the audience around HR, who HR is, what HR does, and I think there's a lot of assumptions that we'll touch upon and a lot of humor, because we really have managed a lot of chaos in our careers. And I know the 2 of you have tons to share. And the fact that you're both moms and a nana, which, Amy, every time you say that, I'm like, what? No,
Me
you're
too.
not.
I still can't believe it.
Yeah, seriously. But I think that's what it is. It's just you understand how to navigate and manage chaos. And you both do it with such grace and humor, which is why we all get along, because my default is sarcasm. It's just my way. And I really think that sometimes we take life too seriously. And there's a lot of fun that you can have, especially in these environments. Believe it or not, people think HR is boring, but you have a lot of fun when you actually can be honest and open and real with your leaders and meet them in that scope of humanity. Like, hey, we're human beings here. Let's have a conversation, a real conversation. And I think, the other thing that you can expect is I love the fact that we all have different industry experience too. So Amy, I mean, you said it. I love your story about your dad, because HR can be done differently in so many different ways. So I think that's going to be another topic that we can explore.
I completely agree. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. There's lots of sarcasm. You got to pay attention. You might not be able to blur the lines between sarcasm and realness, and that's part of the fun. It's probably
Yes.
a little bit of both, and because there's a little truth in the sarcasm. But I also love, like, what we've talked about. I think what a lot of our vision too is built around, in addition to what Marci said, is the intersection between real life and HR, which is a plethora of topics. Like, there may be some discussions about shows and series that are on and how that ties into the corporate world. Like,
I
so
can't wait.
also there are real HR misfits that make their way into the news that you might see that we might want to unpack that a little bit. Like,
Oh boy.
where
Who said Coldplay? Coldplay. Oh
right.
boy.
This is the point where we're like,
Jumbotron.
this is why you need a
Jumbotron.
podcast, because we need to be talking about this live.
Coming.
But there is just so much things. And you know what? What's the most exciting thing to me with all of that being said is, like Amy said, I feel like I've been on like a great American journey for the last, 10, 15 years. But with that, I've met a lot of really awesome HR people. I know you're all out there. I actually think that there are more HR misfits than policy police. And so I think that if you find us here, you've probably found your people, and there's more of us than there are of the other people. So this is going to be our place to bring all of us together around the world into this misfit community.
I love that. Yes,
So well said.
That's spot on. I feel like you just wrapped the show. So for our listeners, a couple of kind of quick things. One, if you feel like, you consider yourself, or maybe you've been told, you're too bold, or like Marci, you're going to bring that mouth to HR. You're too honest. You're too, whatever the word is for corporate HR. I just want to say, welcome home. You've met your people. So we're all here. We're excited to dig in on all the topics that Marci and LaToya talked about. I'm super excited. I know we all are for our very, this is a kind of an intro episode introducing you to your HR Misfits. But our next episode is going to be based on the hit show on Netflix called All Her Fault.
Can't wait.
We are very excited. We all have watched this show. In fact,
Marci has been holding on to all.
Yeah.
I literally binged it in a day. Like, it was like 2 a.m. and I was like, no, I got to finish this. This is this is really good. So yeah,
good.
It was fantastic.
It's so good. And there's so many themes in there that we just can't wait to dig into and talk about. First of all, if you haven't seen it, watch it, especially if you are a working woman, and even more if you're a working mom. I mean, I think there's just so many cool and strong themes, and also some really annoying themes that are going to drive you crazy.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it. We're going to dig into it on the next episode. It's going to be really good. I just want to wrap it up by saying, I just want to thank LaToya and Marci for joining me in this journey, because I started the People of Work this past summer as kind of a passion project. I'm just very interested in people's stories and how they got from here to there and their pivots along the way. And the fact that I get to create a sub-series that's the HR Misfits with two people that I admire and adore so much and are snarky, just like me. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I think that we're going to have some cool things to share with our HR Misfits across the world, and anybody else that wants to listen in and just, hear all of our shenanigans. So thanks for listening. Thank you, LaToya and Marci, and we'll see you all again.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to HR Misfits, where people leadership gets real. If this conversation resonated with you, follow the show and subscribe wherever you watch or listen. And if you're a leader navigating complex, high-stakes people decisions, we're also building the HR Misfits Collective, a place for real counsel, not HR theater. You can find us online at www.thehrmisfits.com.